Alright, greetings everybody and welcome to another video. Today we are going to be talking about pointless things. That's right, pointless things. And the reason I'm calling it pointless things is because pointless things has to do with the fact that Wotv feels like it's getting close to the end of its lifespan. With high development costs that the devs just don't seem to be willing to cut, as well as just not the general restructuring and the fact that the producer live letters feel very, very barren and content feels a little bit stretched out, and that the general overall game didn't really seem much in the way of improvements to the overall format of Wotv. It does feel like maybe they are just kind of riding this out to the end and just hoping that a miracle will happen and everyone will come flooding back to the game and spending tons and tons of money, because it seems like, at least through data numbers, that the sales are in decline, playership is in decline. And I can kind of attest to that as a JP player from the fact that my guild is just almost empty. It feels like long-term players for us have just been dropping the game because it's not fun, it's not interesting. The rates are in this game are still piss poor, and just a ton of other stuff. Personally, for me, even I'm just wearing down on my last legs because I hate hollow VCs. I just hate them. Before, it was always dependable that I could get a VC and raise it very easily, with the exception of being collaboration VCs, but that was something I was willing to bear, or at least not being able to get every VC. But hollow VCs have really kind of just ruined the game for me, because I haven't gotten a new VC in months, and it's just more and more frustrating. And then you look at general things like cost of limited time events being like constantly pushed lower and lower to force people into certain stuff, and I don't know, it is what it is. And at this point I am feeling less and less inclined to play Wotv, so maybe this is just the twilight era for me, not so much for Wotv. But also talking about the fact that recently just been playing some absolute bangers of video games that are not gacha, and yeah, it kind of makes sense that it's maybe at the end of itself. Don't worry, we'll find ways of making content even if the viewership goes right through the floor. That's right on brand for me. But until Wotv is actually dead, it might be worth considering something that Wotv could do. And I'm not going to make any radical suggestions, at least in the first video, about, hey, guess what? You guys should just kill hollow VCs and get rid of them. It was stupid and whatnot. Hollow VCs are here to stay. Just like 140s. We're never getting rid of that. So let's look at something else that I think Wotv can do. And the first suggestion that I want to suggest is that, first of all, collaborations should just be run constantly and without remotely any hesitation whatsoever. I mean, you look at right now where FF13 has come back, and it essentially has almost no new content whatsoever. It has one new character, one new weapon, and, some improvements to old stuff, but for the most part, there really wasn't much added of anything. So, and that seems to be the thing with a lot of repeat collaborations. With new collaborations, sure, there's a lot of new stuff, but why can't we just have old collaborations constantly running anyway? Not legal reasons. I mean, sure, in this suggestion, this is not talking about things like Persona, which are outside, which require more legal and contracting and everything like that, and undoubtedly is more difficult. I'm talking about Final Fantasy collaborations. Why can Final Fantasy 1 Tactics be rerun even necessarily without improvements? Like, there isn't really that much content added anyway. Not that I think that updates require all that much work, because sure, balancing is a thing, but at the same time, why can't it just be run without new stuff? Like, why can't 7 someone was saying today, why can't we get a Sephiroth rerun? Sephiroth doesn't need necessarily upgrades But if one of your selling points of the game is, hey, this is a Final Fantasy game that has Final Fantasy characters from other numbered Final Fantasies, and 99% of the time you can't get most of them, who gives a fuck? Even FFBE did this better than Brave Exvius has. And sure, for a while when there wasn't content, so much of it to necessarily fall back on, I could see the reason. But Wotv, like, take a look at, let's say, 15. When the fuck was 15's last collaboration? When the fuck was most of these things' last collaboration? And then you look at certain other things, like, sure, 13 is going to end soon, and you're just never going to get the chance again. And I can understand the idea of FOMO, that these games want to push as much FOMO as possible. You'll never see Fang again. But maybe that is just kind of stupid now. That the player base is dwindling and getting less willing to put up with this shit. Why don't you try an entirely new strategy and just put it in? And I do understand that would require some actual manpower, but here's the idea. Spend some money, stop giving your CEOs and execs so many bonuses. They can do without it for a little while if you want this thing to go on. And Gumi's MO here is probably just move on to the next game, which kind of tells you why you should, if you finish with Wotv, you should just be done with this company forever. It doesn't even require this page to end up being shit at the end of the day. Just redo this and have actual dedicated tabs from now on. Lots of games do this. And yeah, just separate it so it's a little bit easier loading each one of those tabs. Like, it doesn't really need to be that overly complex or complicated or anything. Just have the old content running in a cycle and then announce a special time where it's like an extra bonus with new content and whatnot, and that will get people's attention when you finally do tactics again and finally upgrade those characters, because we're all going to die before that happens. If I sound cynical and annoyed, it's because I'm cynical and annoyed. I'm tired of Wotv doing this shittily. And yes, like I said, certain collaborations I don't expect to come back, and I don't necessarily always expect a new collaboration or for an old collaboration to have new content. But constantly keeping all of these characters out of people's hands is not a selling feature, because people aren't fucking sticking around long enough for you to pull this shit anymore. It really is frustrating and annoying, because this is a video that is almost entirely fucking useless. Almost nobody probably cares on the dev team anymore, and the execs don't care and are probably just writing it out and milking whatever they can get out of people before this thing just dies off completely and becomes too unprofitable. That's probably the situation. But hey, if you really, really want to make an actual effort, try doing this. It can't be that much work to recycle old content and just here's a really novel idea as well. It's free of charge from Umbra to you. Gumi, why don't you just put a message out that says, hey, we're changing the way we're doing things, and be honest and open, and maybe players will generally respond quite positively for once. It can happen. Well, and here's one last bonus at the end of this to go along with the theme that we're kind of working with here. Why don't you take characters like Astrius, Setia, Renan, characters from Another Story 1, and just permanently add them to the permanent pool? You don't do reruns enough for this shit to be worthwhile anymore. So just frickin' do it. I don't know. I'm tired of talking about this, and I'm giving myself an earache. But at this point, I'm still going to try and suggest that some things to improve the game and potentially turn it around. Because at least when EOS does come, I can say, hey, I didn't give up. What about Gumi? Whatever. that's all for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and see you later.